Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Fantasy Football Fix Game Week 23 live stream. My name is FPL Nacho, and I'm going to be the one trying to negotiate this way through the next hour and 15 minutes until that Game Week 23 deadline. So, as always, guys, if you are going to be on this stream, please do drop it a like and hit that subscribe button just to support the channel. And if you haven't already, make sure you head over to fantasyfootballfix.com to check out all of the amazing tools available, something that I use on a daily basis, and I know it will definitely benefit you guys. So drop yourselves in the chat who is tuning in right now. I see Tom obviously in the chat. Let me know, guys, who is involved and any questions you have for Game Week 23 deadline. It's an hour 15 away. We have plenty to discuss going into this game week deadline. I know that it is something that a lot of people are probably debating what to do right now because of the game week announcement with Watford and Burnley having a double game week. So let's go straight to that, guys. If you're tuning in right now and you didn't know the news, Watford now have a double game week alongside Burnley. So I've brought up the fixture analyzer here to check out, and you can see there right now, Watford, based on our fixture analyzer, have the best double game week in 23 at home to Norwich and away to Burnley, followed by Burnley, who have their other double game week away to Arsenal and at home to Watford. So if you don't have Watford assets right now, I really do think going in on the likes of Josh King and Dennis are looking like the best moves that you can make going into game week 23. But we will touch on who is the better pick of the two. And again, people like Ben Foster, if managers are sat there right now and he's been on your second bench, second goalkeeper for a while, he could come up, step up as a hero in game week 23. So he could be a brilliant option going into this weekend. I see Mickey's in there, triple captain King. Alice, hope you're doing well. Colin, hope you're doing... Oh, Colin, sorry. Colin, who the bloody hell's Colin? Colin, hope you're doing well. Mickey saying triple captain King. Well, first and foremost, guys, let us take a look at, importantly, the predicted points in game week, in game week 23, as I really think that this is going to be the opportunity for you guys to see who is going to be the highest scoring players in game week 23. Again, another part of the Fantasy Football Fix website. I really do recommend you guys checking it out and subscribing to our premium membership. But brought up here our predicted points in game week 23, and you see that Dennis just leading the way for projected points on 7.5. Josh King just slightly behind on 7.3. So right now, if you are in a situation where you are looking to bring in one of the Watford forwards based on our projected points, Dennis is just leading the way. But it's worth noting he is slightly more expensive at 6.1 compared to the 5.8 million of Josh King. So in terms of your triple captain question, I don't really think I would triple captain this game week. Yes, it is a good fixture for Dennis and King, but we saw only last game week with Cristiano Ronaldo. Yes, I know he didn't do well, but when we do have premium teams with good fixtures, Fernandes getting that massive haul, I would probably hold off right now. I think there's going to be better double game weeks available with proven assets available to triple captain. In particular, the likes of Salah, who we know is probably going to have a double game week down the line. I would feel much more confident triple captaining on a premium proven asset. So I would hold off on that triple captain. But that doesn't mean that captaining these players isn't the best move. I 100% would recommend managers captaining their Watford forwards going into this game week. So Colin's saying roll the transfer or play Ronaldo, and if he doesn't play, Gallagher comes on. So right now, if you don't know, there has been some news about Ronaldo that he potentially is a doubt for this weekend. So for a lot of managers right now, it probably is posing the opportunity to just pull the trigger, get rid of Cristiano Ronaldo and bring in one of the Watford forwards who are doubling for sure in game week 23. So in your situation right now, I still think Ronaldo is an okay hold for this weekend, but with those injury risks, that is going to dampen his potential in game week 23. You can see on the screen there, 6.4 projected points in game week 23. So still really, really good, but that is now going to have a bit of a question mark around it because of those rumours of an injury. So I think right now, if you're in a situation with Cristiano Ronaldo, I would look at the rest of your squad. How does it all look? If your bench is incredibly weak, I would probably look to first and foremost strengthen that bench. Secondly, other players right now in your team who are got flags currently, that should probably be a priority. And then if not, I think Ronaldo to a Watford forward is a really nice move. It's going to give you a double game week. It's going to free up plenty of funds in your squad, which then into the international break, you can try and get a strategy in place to bring in Mo Salah or other assets that further down the line. So I think Ronaldo selling is probably a viable move, but I don't think it's a desperate move. It's completely squad dependent. Who else we got here? Sorry, apologies. Mark saying, thoughts on what to do with Ronaldo after doubts would be... So I'll cover that, Mark. I hope that helped in that section there. Lewis is saying, Kane out to King. Now, Kane is a really tricky discussion to have right now. For those that didn't watch the game against Leicester, it was a brilliant performance by Harry Kane in that one. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up the heat map for Harry Kane just in that single game week, because I think right now with Harry Kane, we are getting into a position where he is showing signs of his old self. So when we do look at his underlying stats for game week 22, we can see his touch map there being a lot further up the pitch than what we are used to seeing. We're used to seeing this heat map predominantly on that halfway line, being the playmaker in the side. This touch heat map was very, very promising to see. And we can see in terms of the shots, 10 shots. We know that when Harry Kane is in his best form, his shot volume is up there with the best in the league. And that wasn't to be any different in this game here. Now, when it comes down to the actual underlying stats, we know that he picked up that goal, but the expected goals of 1.7, 10 shots, 6 of those in the box. This to me is signs of the old Harry Kane. Now, yes, let's just not jump to the conclusions right now. That was against a Leicester team who were looking really, really poor. Vestergaard was running like a parachute on his back. It was unbelievable how slow he was. But I'm seeing good things from Harry Kane right now. The one thing I would say, fixtures are looking a little bit tricky for Harry Kane going forward. So in the short term, I don't mind the move from Harry Kane to a Watford forward. But I do think in the longer term, you are probably going to want to be having Harry Kane as a little bit of a differential in your side going forward. As always, guys, drop your questions in the chat. And if you haven't already, make sure you do like the stream just to support the channel. Very different live stream because it's deadline. I'm just going to be answering questions, using the site alongside it and bringing up some of the amazing tools we have available. So, Rio saying, replace Antonio for King or Pedro. So, first up, I think King is probably the easier pick of the two in regards to your Watford forward. We saw Pedro pick up that goal, João Pedro pick up that goal in game week 22. I just think his game time is probably a little bit more riskier than King or Dennis. And we can see the fixtures there available for Watford against Norwich and Burnley. I think that's enough of a reason to potentially pull the trigger on Antonio to one of these Watford forwards. Now, as I mentioned, in terms of the projected points, Dennis and King lead the way in terms of their projections, 7.5 and 7.3 respectively. But if we bring up Pedro for Watford, we can see 5.2 projected points. And when we bring up his profile here, I'm just looking at his underlying stats and current ownership. 0.7% ownership is unbelievable differential going into this game week. But I think right now with the market moving heavily towards Dennis and King, I just think being smart sometimes doesn't pay off. And while he is a great differential, I just think going for the smarter move of King or Dennis is just going to cover the basis a little bit and get you guaranteed game time in a Watford double game week. I think that's probably the priority right now. I don't think we need to be too smart about it and go for the likes of Pedro as we speak. Now, in terms of Antonio, what to do with Antonio? Well, let's bring up the fixture analyzer over the next 5 game weeks just to see what we have in play. Apologies, I can't even count to 5. Here we go. 5 game weeks. Because I want to look at this over a longer term for Antonio because, of course, in game week 23 in isolation, the game against Man United isn't necessarily the best on paper. When we look a little bit more longer term, we can see Watford at home in game week 24 is a brilliant fixture for Antonio, followed by an injury-ridden Leicester. I want a bit of that, please. And then Newcastle at home for Antonio. So, although necessarily the games aren't the best in game week 23, the 3 after that are amazing for Antonio. Watford, on the other hand, West Ham away, who could have Kurt Zouma back, which is going to make them stronger defensively. Brighton at home, always a tricky customer. Villa away and Man United away. The one thing I would say for those managers that are selling Antonio, I think you will reap the rewards in the short term in game week 23, but longer term, I do think that Antonio could do very well over this period. So just be cautious of that. If you are selling Antonio, he is going to be a really nice asset from game weeks 24 to 26. So I would tread carefully if you are selling him. I think there's definitely potential for Antonio over that period. A lot of people saying about Ronaldo to a Watford forward. I've covered that. I do think that there is definitely a viable move to make now. After Rangnick's comments about potentially Ronaldo missing game week 23, I think what it does, it frees up plenty of funds in your squad to invest elsewhere. So I don't mind that move at all. You're going to get that double game week, which is really, really essential. People saying, is there a double game week? Yes, there is a double game week. Watford and Burnley have a double game week this game week in particular. Antonio or Lamperty, I'm assuming that is for your squad to play. If that is the case, Antonio, I'll just look at the predicted points for this section, but we know that Lamperty features against, apologies, just trying to get up the fixture analyzer, give me 2 seconds. So we know that Lamperty has a game against, bringing it up right now, away to Leicester, which I think is actually going to be a decent game for Brighton. In terms of a defensive perspective, I don't know whether I would necessarily pick Lamperty over Antonio. We've seen Man United really struggle defensively. They even look really poor against Brentford at times, and De Gea really did save their bacon. So while I think Lamperty is an okay pick against Leicester, he looked really lively, I would favour Antonio. I still think there's potential for West Ham to do well against Man United, who defensively look really poor. I would go for Antonio over Lamperty as the pick, but I don't mind Lamperty in a bit of a longer term perspective. Right, guys, trying to cover all the questions that we can. And apologies if I skip any. I'm trying not to duplicate any questions. Bring in Bruno or KDB. Really, really good shout here, because KDB is absolutely storming ahead in regards to ownership right now. A lot of managers in the market are moving towards him. Now, what I've done here, I've brought up the fixed comparison matrix for 4 assets. Now, slightly different prices, but assets that we've been talking about a lot in the market. And I've decided to filter it from game week 15 to game week 22, just because well, I'm looking a bit shorter term. 8 game weeks, I think, is plenty of data for us to analyse. I will filter it at the end for the overall sort of season. But this is where KDB, because I know he's in the conversation right now, has started to feature a lot more heavily. And again, that is going to make the data a bit more relevant, because if we're having KDB in the conversation, we don't really want to take the first 15 game weeks where he didn't do anything because he had no game time. And I put Rafinha in the equation because I really do think he is one of the top players to bring in this game week at home to Newcastle. First, you'll see on your screens there, below the names, is the projected points over the next 5 game weeks. Now, Kevin De Bruyne is predicted to get 29.8 points over the next 5 game weeks, which is considerably more than Fernandes and even Sterling at 20.2. But the really interesting thing is Rafinha at 25.1 projected points, and he's nearly half the price of Kevin De Bruyne. Now, the big thing over the last 8 game weeks is Kevin De Bruyne's output. 49 points better in the likes of Sterling and Fernandes, and 4 goals only being beaten by Sterling on 5. FPL assists 1 for Kevin De Bruyne, and shots 23, seeing the shot volume back to where we expect Kevin De Bruyne to be. So I think right now, if you're in a position where you're targeting a premium midfielder and you don't have either Kevin De Bruyne or Fernandes, I probably would favour Kevin De Bruyne over Fernandes. Of course, we can't predict what doubles are going to be dropping in the future. We can only make our decisions based on now. And based on the fixtures coming up and our projected points, I think Kevin De Bruyne, if you don't have any Man City midfielder, is probably the direction to go in. Now, the big question is, can you not necessarily go down a bit cheaper and go to Rafinha? I think if you haven't got the likes of Salah planned in your thoughts down the line, I think Rafinha just opens up loads of doors for your team at 6.6 million, going to give you loads of cash in the bank to invest elsewhere in your squad. So it is just worth having that Mo Salah plan in the back of your mind, and just don't forget him, because he will be back around game week 24 or 25. So we do just need to have a little plan in place. Mohammed saying, King or Dennis captain? Right now on our projected points, we do have Dennis slightly ahead of Josh King, but it's so marginal that I really think it is a toss of the coin. I think a lot of managers right now probably have one or the other, so the decision for you is pretty much made up. However, if you do have both, I think Dennis is, in our projected points, leading the way, but King just offers you penalties, which I think is probably a really relevant point. And I know that we can see a lot of questions right now in the chat about King or Dennis, etc. So what I'm going to do right now, just going to quickly drop up a comparison between Emmanuel Dennis and Josh King. Just going to quickly cover this, get out of the way, and you guys can rewind it and look at the stats in a little bit more detail if you want to. But Dennis dominating King in regards to FPL points, 94 to 65, and both have played very, very similar minutes. You can see 5.2 points per game for Emmanuel Dennis in comparison to Josh King's 3.8. When we look at the touch heat map, Dennis's touch heat map's on the left-hand side. His has been predominantly on that left wing, but we have seen in recent game weeks him operate as a centre forward. And one thing I would say is with the introduction to João Pedro at Watford, it's been more of a fluid front three. All three have popped up in the centre forward position. When we come down to the underlying stats, 37 shots for King, 36 for Dennis, which again, super close between the two. But I know you guys love the expected goals and all that sort of stuff. 8 for Dennis, 5 for King goals, as I mentioned, but 7.01 expected goals for King, 3.8 for Dennis, and shots are very, very close, and expected assists in Dennis's favour in comparison to Josh King at 2.6. Now, what I want to do here, because I'm conscious that this is looking over the course of a season, and some managers don't necessarily want to see all 22 game weeks to make their judgments. Some people want to see maybe a bit more shorter term and make their decisions because it might be relevant on the formation and the team that they're playing. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring it up from game week. Let's bring it up from game week 15, because what that does there, it just gives us a bit of a shorter term, but enough data to maybe make a bit more of an informed decision. And you can see that Dennis still leading the way on 21 points to King's 12. And when we come into the underlying stats here, King, again, just leading the way in terms of general shots. And the expected goals, again, in Josh King's favour, although Dennis has scored 2 goals compared to King's 0. 6 shots on target for Dennis, 4 for Josh King, and the expected assists just in Dennis's favour. So I really think it is a case of right now, based on long-term, short-term data, Dennis is leading the way in terms of FPL points and actual output. Underlying stats are just favouring Josh King. I think at 5.8 million with penalties, I probably would just favour Josh King as we speak. But I appreciate that managers right now more looking at output and FPL points. Then I think Dennis, again, is an easy pick for you, but I wouldn't be urging managers to sweat too much on the captaincy. I think either player is a really nice pick. Right, let's have a look at the questions, guys. Let us see. I can't find loads through the captain between King and Dennis right now. Hopefully that's helped you out there. Zinchenko and Gray to Diaz/Cash and Rafinha for a -4 to not play double Arsenal and bench Antonio/Fernandes. Tricky one to dissect there, but I will try and help you out. Diaz versus Cash, I probably would prefer Laporte over Diaz right now. Just frees up a little bit more funds. And I really like Cash because of the fixtures coming up for Aston Villa. And importantly, a potential double game week for Cash in the near future. If I bring up the fixture analyzer, we can see Villa's fixtures there looking really good. And potentially a double drop in here and there for them, which is only going to strengthen Cash. So I like Cash as an option. But if you don't have any Man City coverage and defence, I would prioritise Man City defensively. Do I like Rafinha? Absolutely love Rafinha and long term, so I don't mind those moves at all. Ian saying Leicester are so horrible defensively, I'd wait and see on Kane. I agree on that, Ian. I think Kane could still do well, but what I would say is Kane looked good against a terrible Leicester defence. I might even look good against them, who knows. Lucas Moura or Gray, who to bench? I would probably bench of the two, Lucas Moura. But I'm conscious that Gray is against a very good Aston Villa side. I just think Lucas Moura against this Chelsea team. Chelsea have a great record against Spurs. I think Gray's probably the one to feature of the two in your FPL team. Should I use bench boost with Alonso, Lloris, Smith Rowe and Antonio? Now, this really depends who your squad is. But if you are actually in a situation where that is your bench and you have definitely got your best starters in your 11, I think it's definitely an argument to possibly play your bench boost then and there. Again, you have got a bit of a contrast there with Alonso and Lloris, as Smith Rowe's minutes are always a little bit of a risk at Arsenal. I'm always preferring the bench boost after a wild card where I build up a side. However, looking at those premium assets you have there, honestly, if your squad is looking as strong as that bench, I think a bench boost is definitely a viable move. A man saying worth downgrading to keep Foster. Sorry, worth downgrading a keeper to bring in Foster. Frees up cash exactly to get Salah for the next free, for a free next week. I like that move. Again, it depends who you're selling. And in terms of longer term, Foster doesn't look as a good asset from game week 24 onwards. But in terms of this game week in isolation, we think Foster has got the #1 jersey. So I'm not against that move at all, especially if it frees up cash for Salah. That's going to be your Salah plan in place. So I'm not against that at all. Nigel, which midfielder would you captain? Jota, Bowen, or Bernardo Silva? Well, I'm going to chuck Bernardo Silva out of the equation right now. Underlying stats have not been good. He's kind of reverted back to what we expected. Don't really think that he is necessarily going to get too much joy either against Southampton. Yes, I think Man City will do well, but Bernardo just hasn't really been involved in the action right now. Jota been in excellent form. We know that he's been a phenomenal asset. And I think against Crystal Palace, this could be a really tricky game for them. But what I would say is Bowen against Man United is a very appealing fixture as well. Now, if I bring up Jota on the expected points, 5.7 predicted points in game week 23 is a really healthy projected points. Bowen, on the other hand, projected to score 4.4. Now, what I would say is, we know Man United's defence is not looking the best right now. But I just think Jota would just tip the favour for him. I think he's obviously spearheading that attack, looking in really good form. Another brace against Arsenal, I'll just favour Jota. But I appreciate that Bowen is in excellent form right now. And again, guys, if you haven't liked the chat, liked the video, please do drop it a like. If you haven't put any questions in, do drop them in for us. And if I've skipped the question, I do apologise. Please drop it in again and I will try to answer it. Torji saying, King for Broha and Foden for Gray for a -4. Yep, absolutely like those moves. I think long term they're great. The one thing I would say about King, you're not the best longer term, but I like that in isolation. Foden, if he does get game time, is going to do really well against Southampton away. So I like those moves for sure. Help. My mind is Jota, Rafinha, Ramsey, Bowen, and 7.7 million in the bank. Who to pick? I'm confused on that one, really. And 7.7. Are you on about a midfielder to bring in at 7.7 million? If it is the case on that one, who would I bring in? Well, let's have a look at the fixture analyzer a minute just to see what we have in front of us. Oof. At that price point, I think Coutinho is a nice pick, but I know you have Jacob Ramsey already, which is kind of covering that basis for you. Very tricky because you have some really, really good midfielders there, which I don't necessarily think you need to... What I would say to you is, I would probably look to have a Salah plan in place. So if you have a cheap asset right now, keep those funds available and bring in Salah in the following game weeks. Appreciate you guys. Ian, appreciate it, buddy. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for the likes as well. Massively appreciated. Apologies, I've not got your question yet, but I will get to it. Plenty in here tonight, so I do apologise. I'm doing it as quick as I can. So we said about KDB or Bruno. I've just covered that. If you might want to rewind it, done a bit more depth, but I prefer KDB over Bruno. Maddison to KDB. I like that move, but my question to you would be, is KDB a placeholder for one game week and then are you going to Salah? I just think you need a Salah plan in place. Fredge, is it Fredge? Apologies if that's wrong. Should I double up on Watford strikers or use Bowen all in my team? If you're in a position right now where you only have one Watford forward, I would probably just play Bowen and not bring in the second Watford forward. If you own both, I would play both. I think you have to with a double game week. Sam saying, João Pedro or King? Got Dennis already. I would go Josh King. Penalties, good game time. Underlying stats are really solid. I would go Josh King, definitely. I know that João Pedro is quite an appealing asset because of his ownership, but I definitely would go for King. I just think it's a smarter move, definitely. David De Gea to Ederson. Ederson is only 1 point less than him. Jose Sarr, who is goalkeeper with most points this season. Ederson also has the same total points as... apologies, guys. Let me quickly answer this. Second bloody nightmare. Hang on a second. Apologies. Cool. We've done that. David De Gea to Ederson. I do like the move to Ederson. The only problem is that's a lot of funds available in your goalkeeping department. I would question, is that really worthwhile? You want to put that much money in that goalkeeper spot? If it's going to be a double up for you, then I think that's an okay move because you're getting guaranteed game time. But I just think that's probably quite a lot of money invested. I'll probably hold David De Gea. He's picking up loads of save points. I would just stick with De Gea. I know it's not the most appealing right now. Stuart is saying, Watkins, DCL or Antonio to play this week? Pick 2. Well, again, guys, I am going to use our projected points because I think that's always such a brilliant way of looking at who is going to do the best this game week. Now, I just need to refresh myself on who your players were. You have Watkins, DCL and Antonio. So, first and foremost, we have Antonio 4.2 projected points. The best of the bunch, I believe, there. Then we have Watkins, who's projected to score 3.5, so a little bit less. And I would say against an Everton team who have got a new manager in place, obviously interim right now, I do think that is going to be a trickier game than it was if it was against Rafa Benitez. DCL, we're really kind of assuming how he's going to get on under Duncan Ferguson. You can see there, 3.4 projected points. So based on that, I probably would just bench Calvert-Lewin, but I appreciate that you probably have that sort of thinking of Ferguson in the door, he's going to get a big result. So it's all about the gut feel, but I definitely would start Antonio. And I think there's a coin flip between Watkins and DCL on kind of where your gut feeling is right now. iPhone account, that's a weird name. CR7 plus Martinelli to KDB and Watkins, or roll the transfer and play Antonio. So I really don't think playing Antonio is a bad move this game week. We know that Man United are really poor defensively. In terms of that move, I just like Martinelli in this fixture as well, so I wouldn't rush to make those moves. I think Martinelli could do well. I would just question, maybe you could sell Ronaldo in a single move on its own. I think that's probably the move I would make, if any. Tungle saying Rafinha or Coutinho for a pick. Rafinha, 100%. Coutinho, it's worth noting, still hasn't played a lot of Premier League football. Obviously, he only came on for like 30 minutes. Rafinha is up there in our projected points massively. He's projected to score about 25 points, which is, I was going to bring it up here, guys, so you can compare him to other assets. When we look at it over a longer term perspective, we can see there that Rafinha is the second highest scoring midfielder in the game over the next 6 game weeks. So he is looking brilliant in our projected points department. Absolutely Rafinha. Coutinho can emerge as a great option, but I would want to see a little bit more from him. How he is going to develop in this Aston Villa team right now. I think you can go on him a little bit later in the season. Do I start DCL or Gundogan? I probably would go DCL. Gundogan's minutes have been really poor recently, Antonio. So I would go for Calvert-Lewin of the two. We know he's going to get game time and hopefully still on penalties as well. Emmanuel saying, best replacement for Son for long term, or should I still hold? Well, I think we are expecting Son to return in game week 24 or game week 25. So you've done very well to hold onto him till now. I think the big thing I would say, first and foremost, have you got Salah plan in place? Because Son could be an easy cash cow for you to go to Salah. So I would first and foremost, if you haven't made any sort of plans, I'd probably look to do that a little bit longer term. Otherwise, again, I think Son down to someone like Rafinha is a brilliant move. It's going to free up loads of funds for you to invest elsewhere in your team. Who would you take between Tierney or Laporte and Rafinha or Foden? So I'm guessing one of the defenders and one of the midfielders. I would probably go of that. Laporte over Tierney, because we know Arsenal have blank game weeks coming up. So definitely Laporte. And I'd actually favour Rafinha. The main reason is I think Foden definitely has the potential to be a more explosive asset. And there's no doubt he's playing in a better team. But I think Rafinha just offers you guaranteed game time. And we've seen on our projected points here that he's expected to do very well over the next 6 game weeks. So I'd actually favour Rafinha. And it's just going to free up a little bit more funds in your bank to invest elsewhere. Junaid saying, grade of Rafinha or Rudiger to Laporte? It's a really tricky one. I probably would, for this game week in isolation, do grade to Rafinha. I think Rudiger is still okay for one more game week, and then we want to look elsewhere. So I think grade to Rafinha is probably the move I'd make, just because with Rafinha, if there's ever a time to buy him, it is with this home fixture against Newcastle. So I would go down that route for sure. Let me know, guys, in the chat, have you made your transfers yet? I'm somebody who hasn't made them yet. If you tuned into the last live stream, you saw where you probably have a meltdown trying to plan my transfers. So I definitely need to make my transfers a little bit closer to the deadline. I'm going to try and keep this going until 6:30. Right, I've covered a lot of these questions, so let me keep going. Bench Bowen or Bernardo Silva? I would probably go for... I would probably bench Bernardo Silva, but very reluctantly, because I'm conscious that Bowen is playing a trickier team. Appreciate the compliments. Thank you very much. Netballers, DCL or Kane to King or Pedro? Well, it definitely got to be King of the two. And I think it's definitely squad dependent right now. I think DCL could come good because of the kind of new manager bounce under Ferguson. I just really like Kane as an option, but I think you need to, again, have funds in the bank to get Salah in. So probably would do Kane down into King, but reluctantly. Is it worth owning both Ronaldo and Bruno? No. I do not think that that is a good option right now. Now, it's worth mentioning, there's a lot of rumours right now in the game that there could potentially be a Man United double game week dropping at some point. I've got the fixture analyzer here. The fixtures are great for Man United with West Ham, Burnley, Southampton, Leeds, Watford. The big question mark here is, you're going to have Ronaldo and Bruno, which are going to make up a quarter of your budget, and you still need to put Mo Salah in your team. I think it's one or the other, if not any. I think we're in a situation right now where Salah has to come back into your teams because his ownership is going to be massive. So I think maybe Salah and then maybe Ronaldo or Bruno. But I think looking at the fixtures going ahead, Man United assets do look very appealing. So I think Bruno is probably the one I'd pick of the two. Then we can have some nice mid-price forwards in there, like Watkins, like Antonio, like the Watford pair. But I still think there's going to be some really nice emerging assets coming down the line. The likes of Kevin De Bruyne, as we mentioned. I think there's plenty of opportunity for managers, in particular those who haven't got a very good rank right now. I think it's an amazing opportunity to capitalise over the next month of FPL. Thoughts on Martinetti and Tierney? Got them both. I really like Martinelli for this game week in particular. I think he's fully fit, I believe. And I've just filtered this by the actual fixture. We can see Arsenal at home to Burnley is a really good fixture for them in isolation. I think Martinelli could do really well in that fixture. But we have to be conscious there. If you can see on the fixture analyzer, Burnley at home, Wolves away, blank. Brentford at home, blank. Now, yes, there might be a game that drops into game week 25, and that could then make this fixture analyzer a little bit better. But I probably would look to maybe move on one of your Arsenal assets, and I probably would first look to move away from Tierney. Gurab saying King or Dennis. Previously covered that, buddy. So if you want to rewind the live stream, I would probably recommend doing that. Our projected points have Dennis just ahead of King, but only by 0.2 points. Based on the underlying stats, I still think King is the way to go, in particular with penalties. So it's a very, very close one, very much. The skip saying Cash or Digne. Right, so this is a very, very difficult one for us to predict going forward. Now, I would bring up our player heat map section to compare Digne and Matty Cash, but the reason I'm not going to is because of Digne operating at Everton. The data just isn't really something that we can go off. Matty Cash, on the other hand, we do have information for. Now, I don't see Aston Villa bringing in Digne unless he is number one left back. Yes, there is going to be competition from Matt Target later down the line. If they do get double game weeks, minutes could get shared. And Matty Cash definitely has the right back shirt locked in. But I think with set pieces, Digne probably is right now my preference. He's a little bit cheaper than Matty Cash. Digne set pieces, I think he's got that shirt at left back. If you want to go for a Aston Villa defender, I probably would just favour Digne. But if you're worried about the rotation, then I probably would just go for Matty Cash and keep it safe. Travis is saying, apologies. Tim's saying, greater KDB or Rafinha or Alonso to Laporte. It's a very difficult question here because of the squad that you have. It depends what direction you're going with your transfers. If you're going for just all-out premium and you've got plenty of cash to spend, Kevin De Bruyne, no doubt, is an amazing pick. But Rafinha just opens up doors for you to spread your cash elsewhere. Whereas you're going to need a large lump of cash to get into KDB. So I'll probably say Rafinha, to be honest with you. I think that's a really nice move. Imam's saying, I have Dennis and King in this game week. I have 2 free transfers. Gray to Westwood, more pay to DCL or Watkins. Okay, so Gray to Westwood is going to give you obviously a double game weeker, but not necessarily one that I'm really thrilled about. So I'm not really particularly excited by that move. More pay to DCL or Watkins. I probably would just favour Watkins because of Aston Villa's fixtures coming up and potential double game weeks dropping here and there. So I probably like the more pay to Watkins move. Now, I'm going to quickly bring up, guys, our Elite 11 section. If you haven't seen it already, it's a brilliant part of the website. Now, I'm going to refresh to see if anybody has made any transfers. But this is one of our premium tools available on the Fantasy Football Fix website. For those that are regulars to this live stream, you know that this is something that is an amazing sort of part of our site where you get to see some of the best managers in the world and their decision making. So just to show you, for example, this is the consensus 11. This is a team of the most picked players of our Elite 11 managers. And just to show you the ranks that these managers have had, 74 top 10k finishes and 55 top 5k finishes. These are top of the top managers, cream of the cream. And looking at the consensus 11, this is a team basically picked on the most popular players in the Elite 11 teams. Now, I'm going to come down here and just give you an example. Now, Mr. Black here, for example, hasn't made any transfers as of yet for his team. But the best thing about the Elite 11 here is you can look at a manager and their bio. And if you look at Mr. Black and think to yourself, I'm very similar, fancies fixtures over form, and you think this is a manager that you kind of resonate with, then you could come over to the Activate app push notifications or email alerts, and then you just basically get updates anytime they're making transfers. Amazing part of the website. Now I'm going to come down and see if anybody here has made any transfers. I would expect no one has, because these are top managers and they always wait till the last minute. Dan Bennett hasn't made any transfers yet. Philman, no transfers as we speak. Ginger Assassin, no transfers yet. So it is very, very light in regards to the transfers as we speak. And that is probably expected, really, because of the uncertainty right now in the game. You really don't want to be pulling transfers left, right and centre. Now, we do have some here from Kevin. Now, I can't pronounce the last name. Gnapor, I believe. But again, what you get here is a really detailed insight into their transfer decision making. And the two transfers that he has made is Alonso to Digne and Ronaldo to Dennis. So he's capitalising on that Watford double up with the fixtures. He's gone for King and Dennis now. And bringing in Digne, as I mentioned, he's probably my preference in regards to the Aston Villa defenders. I think he's probably on set pieces and looking at a better pick. Now, I don't think there's any more transfers right now, so we're going to come away from the Elite 11, but something I really do urge you guys checking out if you are on the premium membership. It's an amazing part and something that is brilliant to watch and see how managers operate in the game. So let's get back to the questions now, guys, because I'm conscious we have about 35 minutes left until the deadline. So you haven't made your transfers, just get them in place. Maybe not pull them just yet. So got a question here. Who should I bench, Alonso or Ben White? I think I'd probably look to bench Ben White. Now, the reason being is I think Ben White is definitely better for the clean sheet. But Alonso just has that attacking potential and the higher ceiling that I think is probably just favouring him over Ben White. Hayden saying Maddison to Coutinho for a -4. Not a big fan of that at all right now. Yes, Leicester don't necessarily have the best fixture this game week. Just bringing it up right now. Leicester up against, apologies, just getting up. At home to Brighton. Defensively, Leicester are all over the shop right now. But I still think they have some value going forward in the attacking department. So I would definitely just hold Maddison right now. I don't even think Aston Villa had the best fixture against Everton as we speak. -4 for Rafinha or Kevin De Bruyne for one game week and then go into Mo Salah. Well, look, if we're looking at one game week in isolation, again, I always come back to our predicted points because I think it's just a brilliant tool. And looking at game week 23 in isolation for midfielders, we somehow have Sissoko top of the list, but that's of course because he is got a double game week. Who would have thought, guys? Take a screenshot. Sissoko top of our predicted points for midfielders. But you can see that Rafinha at 5.8 projected points, slightly ahead of Kevin De Bruyne at 5.6. So I'd probably go Rafinha. Even though he's cheaper, I think he's got an amazing ceiling this game week. So, but guys, who would have thought bloody Sissoko top of the list? That is incredible. Cancelo plus Diaz or Cancelo plus Alonso. I would go for the double up of Cancelo plus Diaz. But I think Laporte should be in the conversation as well. A little bit cheaper. Game time looks pretty good as well. I would go down that route. I think Cancelo and Laporte. Should I transfer out CR7 to Watkins? I already have Watford forwards. Also, who to captain between Jota, King and Rafinha. Firstly, the captaincy. Fixtures are great for Rafinha and Jota, but having a double game week, in particular a really favourable one, just makes Josh King a really easy captain option. So I would go for Josh King as your captain. Would I transfer Ronaldo to Watkins? I do think it is a viable move, in particular with the risk of him being out for game week 23 after the comments from Ranić. So I probably would make that move. But again, Ronaldo has great fixtures long term. You could easily hold him if you don't want to make that move. So said about six midfielders. Yes, I know. Honestly, that would be incredible right now because the midfielders are looking really solid in the game as we speak. Apologies, guys. Chats just flew by and I can't really check it out right. I've covered those ones. Sorry, guys. Yes, just checking out what Tom's answered here so I don't replicate what has been said. The Pyramid's saying Ronaldo might be out. Should I do Ronaldo and Mount to King and De Bruyne for a -4? I really like that move. I really do like that move. Mount with his blanks coming up because of the Super Cup. I'm not against those moves for a -4 at all. -4 Tony to Dennis. I don't mind it. I'm not huge on it, but because you're getting the double, then I think it probably does pay itself back. But you're putting a lot of pressure on Dennis to get those returns for a -4. So it could be a little bit of pressure there. Ronaldo and Mount to DC out and Fernandes for a -4. Probably wouldn't make that for a -4. I'd probably look to just maybe move Ronaldo sideways and keep Mason Mount in your team. I think that's probably the move that I would make. Kazim said, hey mate, Salah for who? KDB or Sterling? Well, I think first and foremost, Salah's going to be back very, very soon. So I don't necessarily think you need to make the Salah move desperately. However, I'm conscious there's a lot of money in your team. But would you really want to go sideways and do Salah to De Bruyne back to Salah? If it is Kevin De Bruyne or Sterling, it's got to be Kevin De Bruyne, I think. Stefan's saying, how are the goalkeepers comparing for the next few game weeks? Okay, let's get the fixture analyzer up, isolated on goalkeepers alone. And let's look at it over the coming game weeks. Now, first and foremost, game week 23, there's no surprise that Foster is leading the way on 7.2 projected points. Pope just behind on 6.4. But interestingly, Wolves is Sarr on 5.2, Ramsdale on 5. Could be a great game week for goalkeepers outside of the game week 22. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to change the fixture analyzer from game week 24 for a bit more longer term, because what will happen is because of the double game week, it's going to slightly skew the results. You might see Foster a lot higher up than he should be. So just remember, Foster and Pope are top of the charts for goalkeepers in this game week. But looking at game week 24 onwards for the next 6 game weeks, no surprises that Edison is leading the way on projected points of 28.5. Man City are absolutely colossus at the back, keeping so many clean sheets. But Wolves' Sarr is still ticking along nicely, 27.4 projected points over this period. Amazing returns so far for him, and Wolves looking really tough cookies to break down. If you're looking for the likes of De Gea's and Lloris's, I'll probably still consider Sarr as the alternative to them. Now, Martinez is probably the one that could be a brilliant option going forward. If Aston Villa have a couple of double game weeks sprinkled in over the next 6 game weeks, you're going to see his projected points go massively through the roof. And we know he's always good for a potential mega haul. So I probably would go for Sarr right now of Wolves. But I think Martinez could emerge as a really nice option later down the line. Right, what have I missed, guys? We're trying to catch up on some of these. Hugo saying, thoughts on Sterling? Don't mind Sterling at all. I just think Kevin De Bruyne is probably the route I would go if you're going for a Man City midfielder. Again, I absolutely love Phil Foden as well. His minutes are always a risk, but Phil Foden is somebody who I think is still one of the best options in the game in terms of value, per whatever you want to call it, just value in general. When he does feature, I think he's a brilliant option. And Alex is saying about Foden being a risk once Mahrez returns. Yes, that could definitely be a case, but I still think Phil Foden is so versatile in this team, he could definitely get game time. Should I do Bruno to Rafinha or just wait for Salah? I'm not a big fan of selling Bruno this game week. West Ham defensively are looking really, really poor. I think Bruno could still do well, especially if Ronaldo is out. Bruno's going to have a lot more emphasis in the team, and we know with their 4-3-3 formation, it's definitely helping Fernandes. So I definitely think Fernandes is somebody I would look to hold, even though I really like Rafinha in this game week. Now, if we're looking at Fernandes in isolation in that game week, I think we definitely want to see how he picked up in terms of his actual touch map, because he's somebody who I think a lot of managers haven't really been owning all season. Now, ignore the right-hand side player heat map because that's currently got Josh King, and I just want to look at Bruno Fernandes, but we see that all action in the player heat maps, taking corners, plenty of touches in the middle third, and 4 shots, 5 attempted assists. We can see there the 2 goals coming from an expected goals of 1.3, goal assist 2, expected assist 1.06. So looking really solid in terms of those underlying stats in game week 22. Remember, that is a double game week. So I think for Fernandes is still a solid hold for this game week in isolation. I still think he's a nice pick. Sebastian saying triple Aston Villa for upcoming fixtures. I do think if they have doubles dropped in there, they are definitely triple up potential with the likes of Digne, Jacob Ramsey and Watkins up front. I think that's probably the optimal 3 if you are going down that direction. Misa saying De Gea and Bowen bench, time for a boost. Okay, if you're in a spot right now where your squad is that strong and you can have De Gea and Bowen on your bench boost, then I definitely think there's definitely potential there. But you have to remember, Bowen can't do well while De Gea does well unless there's a penalty save in there. So just remember they are against one another. That might not necessarily give you the most optimal bench boost. Captain and KDB over King. That's really interesting to see. I still think the single game weekers could do very well, but the double game week has such a high ceiling because of the minutes they can play. I think that's the temptation right now. Do I bench Antonio or Lucas Moura? I would bench Lucas Moura of the two. Bench DCL or Danny Ings? I would probably bench Danny Ings just because minutes for Calvert-Lewin are a lot more secure. We know he's probably got penalties as well. I'm not sure who's got penalties in the Aston Villa team. So I probably would bench Danny Ings, but again, probably a little bit reluctantly. Odegaard to Saka or Martinelli, Ian's asked. I would probably go for Martinelli. No, I'll probably go for Saka of the two, but it's worth mentioning they do have blank game weeks coming up. And that's the big put-off for Arsenal assets right now. So I'd probably even look to do Odegaard to someone outside of Arsenal. Probably Rafinha. I know I mention him a lot. I just probably would go sideways to Rafinha. I appreciate I've got the player heat map section up right now. So let me just drop on the algorithm picks for all players just to keep it there for you guys to check it out while we go through the questions. Of course, I will keep going through the site to answer other questions. Swapped out Jorginho and Gundogan for KDB and Gordon captaining KDB. Yeah, don't mind those moves at all. Start Reguilon or Rudiger. Probably would just go Rudiger. I think Chelsea are better off for the clean sheet rather than Spurs. We've seen Spurs still defensively being poor. Chelsea, yes, have been poor as well, but I'll probably just favour Rudiger. Alex saying, what's wrong with Mount lately? What's wrong with Chelsea right now? They're looking really disjointed as a team. Definitely wouldn't be looking to invest in Chelsea. I'd probably be looking to sell all their assets right now. But in isolation for this game week, Spurs isn't the worst fixture on the planet at all. Knight saying, Bernardo and Alonso to KDB and Digne for a -4. For a -4, I'm not huge on it. I think Bernardo Silva is going to get guaranteed minutes and Alonso could do well against the Spurs team. Yes, I think KDB and Digne is a massive upgrade in both departments. I just think you need to look at it longer term. If you're happy with those players longer term and you're not looking at this one game week in isolation, I like the -4, but otherwise probably would hold off. Let's skip saying, is KDB a rotation risk because of cup fixtures? I think everybody's rotation risk at Man City, and unfortunately that is the case of all their assets. I'd probably say once you go into them, just accept that that is part and parcel with owning those players. Take a hit to replace Ronaldo for Fernandes. It would be Ronaldo and Mount to DCL and Fernandes. I'm not huge on it. I think the main reason for selling Ronaldo is the potential risk of him being out, which is probably the selling point for managers. So if you were just happy to accept that Ronaldo may or may not play with the comments that Rangnick's made, and you're happy just to part ways, then I don't mind it. Bringing in DCL, you're kind of looking at a bit of a Ferguson bounce. Otherwise, you could bring in Watkins with the anticipation of a double game week coming up. And I would also say to you, having got a Watford duo up top, if you don't have Dennis or King, that would definitely be the priority right now. Alex is saying Foster with 2 games or Ramsdale with 1 game to start in the nets. I think it has to be Foster. I do think that Ramsdale could do very, very well against Burnley, but I just think Foster, with the 2 game weeks, more potential for save points, clean sheets. I would just go for Foster, and our projected points do kind of complement that as well. Lee saying, should I sell Son or hold him? If sell, for who? Probably would sell still, and again, I mentioned I like Rafinha as a lower price point. Otherwise, Kevin De Bruyne as your premium spot, who holds for Salah later down the line. The Fonica, good name. Jota or KDB? Probably go Jota. Great underlying stats. Projected points are still looking really solid for him, and it's going to free up loads of funds in your bank to go elsewhere. So I think I probably would go Jota. Tom says CR7 plus Bernardo to Dennis and KDB. I think I covered that. I don't mind those moves because you're getting a double game weeker in Dennis, so I do like that move. Pete's saying, what about captain in Sterling? I like that as a differential. I still would favour the Watford duo, But if you don't have either of those, or you're really not against Watford forwards, then I don't mind that move in terms of KDB. I think he's up there. I'm planning to wildcard soon, so third forward is blank. For now, I have Dennis and Broha. I was planning to take out Broha for King or St. Maximin. I'll probably go for King right now. Really double down on the double game week. Would you start Alonso or get in Laporte instead, or roll the transfer? Thank you. Would I start Alonso? I probably would start Alonso. I think rolling the transfer over an international break is a really powerful thing to do because injuries do arise. So although I think Laporte is going to be good for a clean sheet, I think Alonso's got potential for attack and returns as well. I'd probably roll the free transfer. I don't necessarily see Laporte getting a major haul against Southampton necessarily. So I'd probably roll the transfer, and I'd also look at your team. Is your rolling the transfer going to really benefit your team, or is it already incredibly strong? Otherwise, you could do Alonso to Laporte. Otherwise, I think everyone's in a spot where they could do with 2 free transfers. So I probably would favour that. Victor saying, should I transfer out CR7 to Watkins? I think I've covered that one. I already have a Watford forward. Also, who to captain between. I think I've covered that one. So hopefully the previous comments have helped that out. Celtic or Rangers, please answer. I'm a Celtic fan, if you can call it a fan. But there's not really any sort of opinion there from me. Apologies. Should I start Cucurella or Gray? Well, based on our projected points alone, now naturally I probably would go for Gray just because being more of an attacking asset. Cucurella is projected to score 19.2. Let me filter this a minute to game week 23 in isolation. Okay, game week 23, Cucurella is projected to score 2.5 points. Gray, on the other hand, projected to score 3.1. So it really is a coin toss. I probably would just favour Gray, mainly at the assumption that he could have a little bit of a new manager boost under Ferguson, but I don't really like that whole sort of logic. One thing I would say about Cucurella, he's amazing for bonus points. So even if Brighton don't do necessarily well, Cucurella is always there or thereabouts in terms of bonus points. Bench Antonio or Bowen or Gundogan or Ramsey. It depends how many are benching here. I probably would look to bench Gundogan reluctantly, just because of his minutes being a lot riskier recently. King or Maddison? Got to be King, 100%. Who to replace Reguilon with? Already have Cancelo and Trent. I would first maybe look to double down on the Man City defence. I really think that's a really nice move. Otherwise, I think you could go maybe to an Aston Villa defender like Digne with the anticipation of a double game week emerging later down the line. Dr. Pepper saying start Mount or Bowen this week. Really tricky. I think with the form Bowen's in, with him playing almost as a centre forward alongside Antonio, I'd probably just go Bowen. I think that Chelsea are looking a little bit broken right now, and Spurs are looking decent defensively, even though they did concede 2 goals. I think as a team, they're looking a lot more stronger. Trying to cover off, try not duplicate questions, guys, so apologies if I've skipped any. Should I bench Alonso or Lamptey? I'd bench Lamptey of the 2. Would you start Gunn or Gaeta? Really tricky. Is Gunn actually starting week in, week out? I don't actually know. Let me know in the chat. I probably would go for Gaeta and hope for some save points, probably. Shivram saying, good evening from India. Can you help me? Who 3 to bench? I have Aït-Nouri, Cancelo, Trent, Reguilon, Rudiger, Bowen, Coutinho, Jota, Foden, Martinetti, Dennis, Calvert-Lewin and Watkins. I'm rolling my free transfer. You're in a very luxury spot to be rolling the free transfer. Okay, in terms of who you can't bench Cancelo, you can't bench Trent. I'll put Jota, Foden, Martinelli with the fixture, Dennis. So those are absolutely out of the equation. Therefore, I think you probably have to bench Reguilon. Unfortunately, I think he has to come into the equation. Reguilon, I would bench one of Watkins or DCL. I would flip a queen there, and probably Aït-Nouri. I think that's probably the 3 that I would bench out of those. How about CR7 for Dennis? I've covered that one. Is Gray to Rafinha worth a hit? Long term, I think it is. In this game week in isolation, probably not, but I like it longer term. Therefore, I do think I would like it. Did I miss Nacho talking about Bernardo? Should I transfer out for anyone or keep? Bernardo, I think long term probably is worth a sell. In terms of options available, Foden is always a nice move, but I'm conscious you're going back into a Man City midfielder who is a rotation risk. Otherwise, I think going to somebody like Rafinha, I've touched on him loads, is just going to give you plenty of game time and underlying stats looking great for Rafinha. Guys, just see we've hit 50 likes. Can we get it to 60? Be amazing if you can support the live stream. Be great if we can hit 60 likes. That'll be a brilliant landmark to hit. Obviously, Watkins or Antonio. Probably go Watkins right now. I just think his game time's guaranteed. Coutinho, I just don't think necessarily he's going to be absolutely locked in this team. I want to see him a bit longer. I think Watkins is a better move. Swap Maddison, Rafinha. Now, this is an interesting one. Yes, I think long-term that will pay dividends, but I probably would say it's not for a points hit. If it's for a free transfer, then I think it's a nice move. Ooh, sorry guys, just skipped loads again. It always does, this guy. Always skips the chat, which is really frustrating. So I miss loads and loads of questions. Jota or KDB, definitely go for Jota of the two just because of his price point. Bench Antonio Mora, I would bench Mora of the two. Nanjay, hope that helps. The skip saying, I'm thinking of getting Dennis in just for a defensive move. His EO will be crazy and I can't take any risks. Don't mind that move. I think Dennis, either way, is a really nice pick. Okay, covered that. Let me know, get in the chat, guys. What are your transfers right now as we speak? Let me know. Omar saying, who would you bench, Emerson Royal or Bowen? I would go for Emerson Royal. I think Bowen is in great form right now, and West Ham could definitely do a job on Man United. I just think we hit 60 likes, guys. Thank you very much for supporting the live stream. Really appreciate it. Bench Antonio or Gundogan or Ramsey? I would probably reluctantly bench Gundogan, and you have to remember that Gundogan is one of those players that could always haul at any time. You just kind of have to accept that with him, unfortunately. Covered that one. King or Maddison? Got to be King because of his double game week, 100%. Should I start Cucurella or Gray? I'll go Gray of the two. Thank you guys for supporting the channel. Should I bench Alonso or Lamperty? I would go for Lamperty. Again, I think I've repeated that one. Apologies. Covered that one. Foden for Coutinho for -4? No, I wouldn't make that move. If you're selling Foden to Coutinho, I don't think long-term that is a good pick. Ricky, hope you're doing well. Well played this season. What's your planned transfers this week? Watford double up. Okay, yeah, probably should quickly touch on it. Had a really good game week last week. Currently sat about 11k. You can see my rank obviously just below me here. What are my plans? So, I haven't even made my plans. Haven't even done them yet, and we have about 15 minutes deadline. Those who tune in know that I am absolutely terrible with my transfer planning. I always go for gut feel. Obviously look at the underlying stats, but in the moment I like to make my decisions, which is a bit different to a lot of people. What's my plans right now? My front line I'm definitely happy to keep. Antonio, Watkins and King. Happy to stick with that. Josh King will get the captaincy. Midfield 4, Bowen, Jota, Foden and Fernandez. Happy with that 4. I've got Gray as first bench. Big problem is defensively for me. I'm currently sat with Cancelo and Trent. Brilliant too. I've got Ramsdale in goal. More than happy with that. But Dallo, Craig Dawson, and Livramento. I have 4.1 million in the bank. In a position right now where I'm debating where to go, whether to sell Dallo or roll the free transfer into the international break. Not sure what I'm doing right now. Let me know in the chat, guys, what you would do. I'm not going for the double up on Watford. I think long term I'm probably going to regret that. And I need to just focus on my Salah plan more importantly. Okay, I've covered that one. Krul is injured. Okay, that's interesting. No, Lamperty or Kufal. I probably would go for Kufal just because of Lamperty having blank game weeks coming up. Don't think you want to invest in Brighton right now as we speak. Captain King or Sterling? Go for King definitely with that. With the double game week they have. See, a lot of people say they regretted Josh King as their pick. Yes, I think that he hasn't been as explosive as we thought, but I think he just ticks along nicely from time to time. Differential captain options, Cancelo or Trent. That is a super close one right now. In terms of the two, I don't really know what direction I would go. I still think Watford are the better picks, but if we do look at defenders for this game week in isolation, we can see Trent leading the way on 5.4 of the single game weekers. Cancelo, on the other hand, is down here on 4.7. So I probably would just favour Trent, but I think both are brilliant options if you want to go down that route. I don't think there's any big wrong answer there necessarily. Who to captain, Rafinha or Cancelo? Johnny asks. I'll go Rafinha. I think I like the upside of Rafinha, so I'll probably go down that route. King or Dennis for Cristiano Ronaldo or Antonio? Probably would sell Ronaldo now, the rumours that are going about. And I think Antonio, the 3 after this game week are amazing. So I probably would go for Ronaldo to sell. And I'm just going to say King, but I appreciate they're both a coin toss. Honestly, it's that close between the two. Bowen captain? No, I wouldn't go Bowen captain, Craig. I don't think that's the best move to make right now. What to do with Broha and Son? Have 2 free transfers and already own Dennis plus Sterling. I think you probably want to look to move Son on. I think maybe go into somebody like, you already have Sterling. So I think Rafinha, again, is a brilliant move. I'll probably look to go down that route, personally. Antonio to King for a free hit or just roll the transfer. I would probably... the big thing about Antonio, and I've touched on this, guys, on the fixture analyzer, that he has a brilliant game week 24, 25, 26. So while King is no doubt probably going to outscore Antonio this game week, I think over the next 5 game weeks, Antonio will outscore King. So it really depends on how longer term you are looking at your fixtures. Apologies, Suaba. Apologies, I've covered that one. Apologies, I hope that helps. I just saw that you said about please answering it, so apologies. I have answered that now, hopefully. Should I sell Antonio? I've covered that one. I definitely wouldn't buy Ronaldo if you're looking at doing that. Definitely not. I don't think that is at all worth a move because obviously we know that Ronaldo could be a potential problem this game week. I'm just looking, guys, because I haven't actually made my my transfers yet, which is terrible, and I do need to have a little eye up on where I'm going with them. Yeah, I do definitely need to make my transfers sooner rather than later, guys. Let me know what are your transfers that you have made. Let me know in the chat, guys. Alonso to Laporte for a -4. No, I wouldn't make that for a -4. I don't think it's worthwhile. Fatima saying, I meant playing Kufau or Lamperty this week. Okay, I probably would just go for Lamperty of the two, but I think Kufau, I just don't fancy him to keep a clean sheet with the way they're playing right now. King versus Dennis captain. Dennis is trumping in the projected points department, but I'm conscious that obviously I think King with the penalties probably just favours it for me. Sell Madison for Rafinha. I really like that move long term, so yes, I would consider that one. Sharon, definitely. Bronson saying, is Ronaldo truly injured? The rumours are that he is. I don't know where he is, though, if you know what I mean. I think if you want to move to a Watford forward, that's not a bad move. I think you just cover yourself for the double game week then. If you don't have any Watford forwards, then I probably would sell Ronaldo for one of them. If I bring in Rafinha for Son, who would I bring in for Broha? If you need to sell Broha, then I think King or Dennis is your move to make, definitely. Oliver saying, can we see your team? I don't think I have my team up on here, guys. Apologies, but my team right now, Ramsdale in goal, Trent, Cancelo, and Dallo at the back. I'm not a big fan of Dallo. I'm questioning whether to sell him or not, but I'm interested to know where I'm going with it. And then I have a midfield of Bowen, Fernandes, Jota, Foden, and then a front three of Watkins, Antonio, and Josh King. On the bench, I have Sanchez as my goalkeeper. I have Gray. I have Livramento and Craig Dawson. Let me know in the chat, guys, what would you do? I'm questioning whether just to roll my free transfer going into this game week and just give myself loads of funds available. I'm really not a big fan of what is available right now in the defensive department. And would I necessarily go for... Would I necessarily go for a Watford defender? Absolutely not. Personally, I don't rate them defensively. So I just think right now I'm probably going to have Dallo as my defender. I'm going to captain King. I'm going to vice captain Cancelo. Apologies, guys. You're almost at my soundboards right now, just going for this route. But yes, I think I'm probably just going to roll the transfer and pray that Dallo somehow gets an assist because obviously he's playing against Bowen and Antonio, who I own both of those. It's just going to give me a bit of... Tom, let me know in the chat, buddy. What would you do with my team, as I mentioned? Would you start Dallo or would you start Craig Dawson? Or who would you sell to? I'm interested to know. Obviously, I could sell Gray. I could sell Gray potentially and bring in Rafinha. But then I'm going to be in a situation where I'm really stuck on who to start in my team. I probably would have to bench Antonio then. Really tricky. Right, guys, let's get back to your questions. Gray to Coutinho or Davis to Watkins, would then have 2 starting players on the bench potentially? I think I would want to look to strengthen your team in general. That's why I would do Davis to Watkins are those moves. If I do Son to Rafinha, but I already have Dennis and Antonio, so not sure who to bring in for Broha. I do Son to Rafinha, but I already have Dennis and Antonio, so not sure what to do. I like Watkins. I don't mind Watkins as a move either for Broha, but you can easily hold Broha as well. I don't think he's a bad hold. I'm so close to going Dennis over King, but King's stats are better right now. Yes, it's really a coin toss right now. I really wouldn't necessarily be too much sweating over it. I really don't think there's much in it. I just think King is probably the one I would favour just on the underlying stats department, because of course this channel is very much stats related. Should we stick with CR7 or roll? If you hold, just be conscious that there are a lot of rumours of him, and we've seen in the press conference him carrying an injury and is a doubt. If you're in a situation where you really can't have Ronaldo be benched, you need to make sure you have a strong bench. If you don't have a strong bench, I would sell Ronaldo. I think that's the route I would go for. Chang 707, I have Watkins, Antonio and CR7, and don't know who to replace with who. Sorry, apologies then. I have Watkins, Antonio and CR7. I don't know who to replace with who or to keep them. I think, again, completely down to what your kind of risk appetite is. If you're in a situation where your bench is not strong enough to back up Ronaldo being not playing, I would sell Ronaldo. I would bring in Josh King or Dennis. Give yourself a double game week. I probably think that. Joey says Sterling in for Saka. I would not sell Saka with a home game against Burnley at all. Tom, you're saying you'd play Dallo and hope for the best. Yeah, I think I'm in that spot right now. I think I could easily sell Gray for Rafinha, but it doesn't resolve my defensive worries. So I think I'd probably just do otherwise. Guys, from a selfish perspective, let's just quickly look at the algorithm points for defenders from game week 23 to game week 27 over a bit of a longer term. We can see Man City are definitely the route to go for if you are going down that direction. I could easily do over to Laporte, but I need to make sure I have the funds available to justify that. Otherwise, a cheeky punt on someone like Aït-Nouri isn't the worst move. I just think I probably want 2 free transfers to strengthen the squad. So I'm going to stick with that, guys. I'm going to stick with Dallo in the team and just pray to God he hits an absolute thunder bastard in the top corner and pick up some goal scoring points. Or if Man United are going to keep a clean sheet, at least something might happen there. He might not even play. And then we got Craig Dawson coming off the bench for no doubt a 0-pointer. But you know, I was never expecting this game week to be a colossus necessarily with a phenomenal game week I had last game week. Right, guys. 7 minutes to the deadline. Please do get those teams locked in if you haven't already, and come back to the live stream just for the carnage of everyone else who are still making their transfers. Mount to Foden, like that move long term. I think Mount naturally probably has better game time. Foden is probably a little bit more riskier, but his ceiling is a lot higher. Marwan saying -4 Rafinha and Dennis instead of Ronaldo. I really like the -4 getting rid of Ronaldo. I'm not sure what you mean about Rafinha and Dennis. Who else are you selling in that one? You should let me know, but I like those moves. Start DCL or Mbuemo. Probably would go for DCL of the two, definitely. Fernandez knocked me down to 300k, so I've gone rogue and captain Pedro. Well, his ownership right now is about 0.7% in live team, so that is going to be a massive differential if that does come in for you. I really do hope it does, as well as a king goal just to help my team in itself. Obviously, like I said, guys, we have got 5 minutes to the deadline, so please do like the stream before you go, just to support the channel. We would really appreciate that, just to, you know, show the love, to be honest with you guys, because it is obviously going to be about 2 weeks or so until we actually get another deadline, because of obviously the international break, the cups that's going on. So we haven't necessarily got much to talk about apart from the reactions from games. So this is going to be the last live stream in terms of a deadline for a little while now. So please do, on the way out, drop it a like just to support the channel. It would be much appreciated. And I will answer as much as we can. The Elite 11 made their moves, most of them at least. Okay, guys, let us drop into the Elite 11 just to see how they have gotten on, because obviously this is an amazing part of the website where you get to get an insight into some of the top managers in the world, get to see what their decision making is like. Now, we touched on a couple. Let's go straight down into the ones that have made additional transfers. I know Dan Bennett, one of my personal favourites, somebody who I definitely do monitor from time to time. Right, so First up, Ginger Assassin. You can see the number of top 10k and 5k finishes. He's had an amazing manager. He has made his transfer, Pookie out to Josh King, and put the captaincy on Josh King. I think that's a very, very valid move to make. Personally, Pookie really wasn't the punt that we were hoping he was going to be. Just bringing down to more here, we can see James Cooper has made the move Ronaldo to Josh King. So you're in a position right now where you have Ronaldo and you're worried about him. James has made that move. He's going to free up plenty of funds in his team to potentially go sideways to Salah. And Josh King there, we know, is a brilliant option. Interestingly, hasn't captained as we speak. Maybe that will change closer down the line. Copenhagen Wednesday has gone for a really interesting move. Son to Sterling and put the captaincy on him. He's avoided the captaincy on Dennis. Really interested to know the decision making behind that one. Don't think it is. It's been updated in the notes yet, so be interested to see what the decision making was there. I think we covered obviously Kevin's moves earlier. Very common theme here, guys. A lot of priority for the Watford forwards, and I think that's probably the route that everybody should be taking. Daniel here made the James to Laporte move, which I really do like. King as captain, he already owned. Again, lots of common themes here, guys. I think that's probably the route you want to go in terms of the Watford forwards, and hopefully that's helped decide a few of your teams going into this deadline. Start Cucurella or Gray. I probably would go for Gray just of those two. El Nico saying, just joined, should I sell Salah for KDB and attack this game week? It's a really tricky one. I probably would attack this game week and just accept that you're going to have to go back to Mo Salah just because it's such a big funds in your squad available. So I like the sideways move, but just be cautious that you are going to be having to go back to him in a previous game week. I don't like the move, but I appreciate that you're in a position where you want to attack the game week. So on a bit of a random, rare occasion, I don't mind that move, but I wouldn't absolutely, tell people to make that move necessarily. I think that's a nice one-off move, if you know what I mean. Make sure you have your teams locked in, guys. I'm personally just making sure my team is all set. Just seeing if I can make a Dallo move, interestingly, maybe to Laporte, just to cover myself off a little bit. But then I kind of question, should I just go Craig Dawson and give myself somebody who I definitely know I don't want? And if I bring in Laporte, for example, is he going to be a rotation risk? That is the big problem with Laporte. Could he be getting dropped from time to time and you give yourself another headache? Fernandez, it frees up lots of funds. It gives the... No, I think I'm just going to stick with my team, guys, and have Salah. Tom's just saying the rest of the managers have made their moves. So those who have tuned in right now, you're going to see basically the updated Elite 11 now, which is obviously an amazing access behind the scenes. Let's just refresh the page a minute. Get to the top. Right then, so we've got Mr. Black has gone Ronaldo to King and Mason Mount to Kevin De Bruyne. Really like that Kevin De Bruyne move. Think that's going to be a big, popular move. Dan Bennett, we've covered, hasn't made a move yet. Philman's gone Gaita to Foster. I think that's a really nice move. And has also done Mason Mount to Coutinho. Very interesting. Gone early on Coutinho. Ginger Assassin has made the Antonio to Dennis move, so he has sold Antonio. That's really interesting to see, and kept Ronaldo. Antonio Dennis for Walter, again, a running theme for Watford forwards. King's been brought in here for James. We touched on that with Copenhagen Wednesday. We covered Matt, we covered Kevin. Tony to King, James to Laporte. Yes, so as you can see there, guys, a very, very mainstream move to the Watford front two, which I think is definitely worthwhile. I think Klopp is going to rest Salah for game week 24 to see a cameo appearance. Yeah, I think that's definitely viable for sure. Ray saying, should I start Region or Dallo? Oh, super close. I think Region is definitely get minutes, so I probably would go Region of the two. And guys, we have only a few minutes till the deadline, so please, if you haven't already, get those teams locked in. Make sure you like the chat before you drop off, and hopefully you guys have a great game week. I think that's it now, guys. I think we have crossed over the threshold. I think that is game week locked in. Let's just check it out on the website. Guys, that's it. Deadline has passed, so I'm going to say thank you very much for you guys tuning into this deadline live stream. Another really great turnout. Thanks for all the questions. Hopefully this has been of some value to you. On your way out, make sure you do give the stream a like just to support the channel. And as always, although there is going to be a bit of a break for FPL, we're still going to be bringing in content over this period. Not me personally, I've got a holiday to get to, but I know FPL Raptor, FPL Phillips, and also Tom Campbell, who has been a new addition, a great new addition to the channel. Is going to be dropping videos over the coming weeks. So be sure to support the guys, hit that notification bell, that subscribe button, and that like. Have a great game week, guys. Hopefully you get a green arrow, and we will see you in the next video. Take care. Cheers.